Something was floating in the water tank on the roof. When the maintenance worker first looked inside, it didn't make sense. The water was dark, and just beneath the surface, something pale drifted slowly in the tank. At first, he thought it might be debris, but the shape was wrong. It turned slowly in the water, just enough to make him stop and lean a little closer. A few days earlier, the first complaints started coming in. Guests in the building said something wasn't right with the water. The pressure was weak. The taste was strange. Some said it looked darker. Others said it smelled. It didn't seem like a serious problem. The building was old, and plumbing issues happened all the time. But when the complaints kept coming in, maintenance was asked to check the rooftop tanks, so someone went to take a look. While all that was happening, something else had already begun unfolding inside the building. A young traveler had been staying there during a solo trip through LA. And the last time anyone saw her alive, she was standing inside one of the building's elevators. Security footage from that elevator shows her stepping inside and pressing several buttons. At first, nothing seems unusual. She waits, but the doors don't close. After a moment, she steps out into the hallway and looks around, then quickly steps back inside, almost as if she's checking to see if someone is there. She moves to the side of the elevator, presses more buttons, and begins peeking out into the hallway again. Standing just outside the elevator doorway, her movements started to change. She raises her hands in front of her and begins moving them slowly through the air. Her fingers spread wide as she flips her hands over, almost as if she's explaining something or reacting to something directly in front of her. At one point, her arms lift higher, her hands opening and closing, while her wrists twist slightly back and forth. The motions aren't quick or panicked. They're slow, almost deliberate. For several seconds, she continues these strange movements in the hallway, her hands shifting and circling through the air before finally lowering them again. And the entire time, the hallway appears completely empty. She lingers there for another moment before slowly stepping farther down the hallway and disappearing out of the camera's view. The elevator sits there while its door is still open, empty, waiting. And then, almost as if nothing unusual had happened at all, the doors finally slide shut. That moment on the elevator camera would become the last confirmed time anyone saw the traveler alive. In the days that followed, no one inside the building realized anything was wrong, but hundreds of miles away, her family had started to worry. They were used to hearing from her regularly during her trip. Then suddenly, the messages stopped. They assumed something simple had happened. Maybe her phone had died, or she had gotten busy while traveling. But as more time passed without a word, concern began to grow. Eventually, her family contacted authorities and reported her missing. So police began searching the property. They checked the hallways, spoke with staff, looked through the rooms, and reviewed hours of security footage. And despite all of that, there was no clear sign or where she had gone after leaving that elevator. Days passed, then weeks. Eventually, the search began to slow, until something inside the building started drawing attention again. The water. What had started as a minor maintenance issue eventually led someone back on the roof. The building's water supply came from a series of large tanks installed high above the structure, so a maintenance worker climbed up to inspect them. One by one, the heavy metal lids were checked until he opened one of them, the last one, and he looked inside. At first, he wasn't sure what he was seeing. Something was drifting in the dark water just beneath the surface. Authorities were called to the building, and as investigators began piecing together what had happened, a disturbing realization started to form. The traveler who had disappeared weeks earlier had never actually left the building. Her name was Elisa Lam. She was a 21-year-old student from Vancouver who had been traveling alone through California. Once investigators confirmed she had been found inside the rooftop tank, attention quickly turned to one question: how had she gotten there? Reaching the roof wasn't simple. Access to that part of the building was supposed to be restricted. Investigators later determined she had likely made her way up there using a fire escape. From there, a ladder allowed access to the rooftop where the water tanks were located. Each tank stood several feet tall, with a heavy lid designed to keep the water sealed. To reach the water inside, someone would have needed to climb up the side of the tank, lift the lid, and lower themselves in. According to the investigators, that appeared to be what happened. But the discovery raised immediate questions, because once inside the tank, getting back out would have been extremely difficult. The smooth metal walls offered almost nothing to grab onto, and the water level inside was high enough that climbing out would have required significant strength. For many people following the case, that detail led to another possibility. If getting out was nearly impossible, how did she get in? Some wondered whether someone else could have been involved, whether she had been placed inside the tank rather than entering it herself. Investigators ultimately ruled her death an accident. They concluded that she had entered the tank herself and was unable to escape. But for many people, the questions didn't end there, because weeks earlier, that strange elevator footage had already been recorded. In it, she appears to react to something in the hallway, peeking out, hiding in the corner, moving her hands through the air in these slow, unusual motions. And throughout the entire video, no one else ever appears. Even now, years later, people continue to watch that footage and ask the same question. What was happening in that hallway? Whatever the answer may be, the building returned to normal after the investigation ended. Guests continued checking in and out. The elevator still opened and closed, and the rooftop water tanks remained in place above it all, quiet, unmoving, holding the memory of what had once been discovered inside. And far beyond the city, the white pines remained.